Artist books are books made or designed by artists. Many contemporary artists use books as a means to express their ideas and visual language to a broader audience. A good artist book illustrates an artist's essential message, and some consider their books as an important part of their creative production. The importance of these books as a separate medium of the artistic process is increasingly recognized, and museums of contemporary art worldwide have initiated or expanded artist book collections. Because of their size and relatively low cost, they allow a generous and diverse collection. I'm a private collector of artist books, and in this series I will present some of my favorite artist books and offer some background of the book and its maker. Keith Haring was born in 1958 in Reading, Pennsylvania, USA. He studied commercial art in Pittsburgh, but lost interest and moved to New York in 1978 to study painting at the School of Visual Arts. In New York, he found an artistic community that was a mix of art, nightlife, fashion, performance, and music. In the early 1980s, Haring captured the artistic climate of the time with his simple and joyful characters of radiant babies, barking dogs, and odd spaceships in bold, chalky lines and with vivid colors, a signature language that became widely associated with the 80s. He enjoyed a stellar rise in success throughout the 1980s and created many public works in dozens of cities around the world, underlining his belief in public art. In 1986, he opened the Pop Shop in downtown Manhattan, where his art could be accessible to everyone. By the arrival of Pop Shop, his work began reflecting more socio-political themes, such as anti-apartheid, destruction of the environment, and homophobia. Haring, being openly gay and an advocate of safe sex, was diagnosed with AIDS in 1988 and spent the remaining years of his life speaking about his illness and generate activism and awareness about AIDS. Keith Haring died at the age of 31 in 1990 due to AIDS-related complications. The artist book shown here is an illustration of Haring's political engagement. The complete title of the book reads, Against All Odds, 20 Drawings, October 3rd, 1989. It has orange boards with black titles on cover and spine in a matching and firm cloth-covered slipcase. The book contains 20 screen prints based on drawings made by Haring in 1989. The book is dedicated to a deceased friend and starts with a 4-page introduction in which the author describes the atmosphere that surrounded the making of the drawings. As to the intention of the drawings, he wrote, "These drawings are about the earth we inherited and the dismal task of trying to save it, against all odds." He also wrote that all the drawings generate from what happened in the first drawing, and that each drawing builds on the previous drawings and advances the story. The drawings themselves were made with Japanese ink on handmade paper and reprinted later on heavy paper. They show the earth bleeding, being manipulated by mechanical arms, being chained or penetrated by knives. Other illustrations represent sperm-like creatures, dustbins, bottles, keys, hands and feet, as well as the human cartoon-like figures that are so typical to Haring's style. Haring intended to sign the first 500 copies of this edition, limited to 2,500 copies, but his untimely death 1 week before its publication in 1990 prevented this. Publisher Beber in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, stamp-signed the first 500 copies with Haring's signature, and these copies were also dated and signed in pencil by Julia Gruen, the executrix of the estate of Keith Haring. Numbers 501 to 2500 were numbered in pencil. Haring's work clearly demonstrates important political and personal influences, as illustrated by the apocalyptic theme of Against All Odds, a book he made whilst being aware of his imminent parting. Many visual artists, like Keith Haring, used books to express strong political opinions to a broad audience, criticizing violence, pollution, racism, sexism, and extreme ideologies. Like Alfredo Jahr's 100 Times Nguyen, showing 20 repetitions of 5 stills of a Vietnamese refugee seeking asylum in Hong Kong in the early 90s. Or Adrian Piper's Colored People, a hint to racism via colors associated with the emotional expressions of her ethnically diverse circle of friends. More direct critique is observed in Michael Ryan's booklets Words of Mass Destruction, featuring emotive wording gathered from media headlines during the invasion of Iraq, or in A. Bronson's TikTok, reproducing the flags of 45 African countries in an attempt to counteract the silence of the subject of AIDS in the Afro-American community. A recent discovery in this category is Pierre David's Nuancier. He created a color chart, much like the ones used to choose paint colors, but here made by the skin pigmentations on the backs of 40 employés of a museum of modern art in Brazil. I hope you like this first video on artist books. The next will be on conceptual artist Peter Downsborough and his book Prospectus.